I'll have to hold the fort. Okay, so we'll just wait for some people to join us, and then we shall have a little spooky chat, shan't we, Paula?
Yes, turn the lights out, hold hands.
We'll do a seance. Oh, no, about it. You're not doing it.
It's not distancing that, though, is it?
Oh. Okay.
Who wants to come?
Who's coming? Somebody's coming. As soon as we do a live, we get a live invasion. This is part of the live invasion. Here we go. Right, the old gang's here, you know. The old gangs. So welcome to anybody that's just joined. We're going to be talking about everything haunted at the moment. We're live right now. Is there no messages? There's no messages popping up. There's people watching. There's people watching.
Why is there no messages?
I don't know. You have to go and have a look on one. So, yeah, we've got people coming in. So we've got people joining now, Paul.
There's only 1, 2, 3 people watching.
No,
1, 2.
There's a few people watching now, isn't there? So.
Hi, Paul.
Hi to everybody.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Paul. Hi, Paula.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Here comes trouble. So, hi, guys. Hi. If Bex, go and get your mum.
No, because I was just from Jack's, now it's come.
Right, we'll tell her we're live and she can come.
She knows.
Laura, hello. Christine, hello. Susan, hello. No. Craig. Different people to what you think, okay? So, we're live. We're talking everything haunted, but we also, Paul came up with a suggestion before that we should also, if you've got a ghostly story and you would like to tell it and speak to us on here, let's have you join us. Let's have you speak to us. So if you have a ghostly story or an encounter that you would like to tell to everybody that watches these videos, ask us on the comments, get in touch. We'll send you a special invite code and we'll have you join us. Okay? So if you want to tell us a spooky story, you can tell us. You've got plenty of spooky stories, haven't you, Paul, that you've had?
I've got a fair few, but I'm saving those for tomorrow night.
Right. So, can you, Paul? I'm just going to leave you with the floor for 1 second, and then I'll come straight back. Yeah.
Hi, folks. How are we all doing? So, as Sean's just said, we're offering you the chance to come and join us live right now to tell us any of your ghostly experiences. So all you need to do is drop a message to Sean. I think that's what he's doing right now. I think somebody's popped up and said that they've got a story to tell. So in a few minutes, hopefully you might see a third face and they're going to relate something that's happened to them. And if you're not shy, you want to share your experience, brilliant, please do. I love hearing all about other people's experiences. Just tell us what you know. Tell us what's happened to you. What's this? Oh yeah, I know that. So yeah, let us know what's happened to you. If you've got a story to tell, you've heard a story from a family member, urban legends perhaps, you know, whatever you've got that you'd like to share with us, please do. I can't see anybody's comments, so if anyone's saying anything, can't see it, I'm afraid, so I'm not ignoring you. I just get the banner along the bottom, which you probably see as well, which tells you about where you can watch Ghost Dimension, and tonight there's a broadcast chasing a ghost. So if you're saying anything, I do apologise, not ignoring you. Some of the messages that came through yesterday that were missed, I did answer a few of you privately back in after the broadcast yesterday. So hopefully you got those. So yeah, don't know what else to say. Hopefully, oh, here he is, well timed.
There we go. Just sorting out some chaotic problems with the kids. So that's the floor there. It was getting a bit too noisy at my side, so we had to sort that problem out. Banish them.
Thought you were bringing somebody on. I was just saying, explaining. You know, if anyone's got any stories to tell, please come and tell us and message you so that you can invite them in. And I thought there's going to be a third person with us.
No, not right now. I'll just check the comments now. So I knew Jane. Me and Paul just had a little conversation before we went live. that Jane would join the live broadcast, even though she's thrown him out of one of the rooms, and she's there commenting. She's put, hola, hola, yes. Oh, there's one of the comments right now. So she's gone crazy. So I have a problem here with kids, Paul. Can I leave you again for 2 more minutes? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go and lock them in that room under the stairs. So it's me again, folks. Why did the Mexican throw his wife on a fire? Tequila. It's a joke I heard the other night. Absolutely lousy at jokes, so I'm not even going to try and remember anymore because I'm bound to get the punchline wrong. So if you got any funny jokes, throw them my way. I'm no good at this waffling to a screen. I can see myself. Oh, well done.
There we go. Anybody that's got children off at the minute, and which they have, I suppose, will understand how crazy it is at the minute. And this afternoon, and we seem to have got a couple of kids that are just loco. So I'm trying to get them out of the room. I think I manage that now. So we've got Netflix on another room, and we've got them off in there. So
stick them in the greenhouse.
Stick them in the greenhouse. Yeah. So, like Paul said, if you've got any ghostly stories and you'd like to speak to us, let's speak to you. Let us know. Get in touch. Bear, are you there? Would you like to speak to us? If you are, we'll give you a link and you can join this video. Lee. Oh, I'll put this on screen. Here you go, Paul.
Oh, there you go.
Lee Bowen stayed twice at Chinnington Castle and slept with the lights on. Have you been there, Paul?
Do you know, it's one place I've never been to. I'd love to. The history behind it, the dungeon that they've got where all the torture devices are there, absolutely amazing. Some of the stories that come out of that place about the torture that was carried out is gruesome, amazing, terrifying. But yeah, I'd love to go there.
Yeah, I think it would be an awesome place to go to, and I've not been there yet, but it'd be great. It would be great if one day we go there and we do an investigation. You know what I mean?
We'd have to be there for a few days. It's a huge place.
Yeah, definitely. I was just messaging Bear there on Messenger to see if you'd like to join. So hopefully we may have a guest in a moment. And if you are on here, oh, she's just messaged back. She said, "I am watching." It's a bit.
Who enjoyed Flecky Bennett last night? Thumbs up if you did. Hello, Darcy.
Darcy enjoyed it. We've got Craig and Lawrence. Oh, Craig Lawrence Bailey. I can share one with you. Yeah. Yeah. So let's send Craig a code. Paul, do you know Craig personally? Do you?
No, we've just been chatting a few days about stuff.
Is he on your Facebook?
Do you know? I don't know.
You don't know? Don't know. So let me check. I'm just going to send you a link. Craig Lawrence Bailey. Yeah. So Craig Lawrence Bailey would like to talk to us. Let's just send you a message. 1 second. I think we've got this right here. Yeah, there we go. That's been sent to you now.
Talk him through what he needs to do, just in case.
So when if you would like to speak to us live on here, and we're happy to speak to people, we're going to send you a link. Open the link. You don't need to, if you're on iPhone, anything like that, it's fine. There's nothing to download. You open it, put your name in, hold the phone sideways, and poof, we'll invite you onto this broadcast. Craig is now doing it the wrong way and trying to call me. So
I did that myself a minute ago, though. Wrong button.
There we go. There's another. Oh, I've got Bear. Bear's about to join. So let's bring Bear in. Yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you guys over there? This is kind of a cool format.
I did that myself a minute ago.
Cool format. I really like this.
There we go. Bear's about to join. So let's bring Bear in. Is that your audio in the background, Bear?
Yep, I'm good, I think. I'm only hearing one of you.
That's better. Yeah. Are you still there, Paul?
Are you
I am
Paul?
here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi, Bear.
So, Bear, have you got any haunted stories of places that you've been to?
Well, I can tell you what's happened to me as a medium over this past year. And even actually last year, when you guys were over in those, I think it was the bingo hall that you guys were at. And I had Frank Sinatra come through. You remember that?
Yeah. I remember that completely. Yeah.
So I'm always seeing spirit come through. I remember long ago taking my kids when they were first starting to get into it, and we went to cemeteries, and we would sit in the cemeteries at night and just run the camera, the digital camera, and the EVPs, and we had a lot of stuff come through that way. Worked in downtown Detroit. Went to the Detroit Museum, which is like an underground museum. You go into this building and it's actually underground in the old streets of Detroit. It's an actual, like, because cities build over everything, as they progress over years. So they set it up. And when I went down there, there was a lot of activity down there, and you could see and hear stuff move around, and a lot of history in Detroit. My daughter went to the Whitney.
Yeah.
And she was down there with David, and they could hear and see things down there as well. So there's a lot of history in Detroit. And me growing up, I saw a lot of it there. And like I said, I see spirit all the time. So for me, it's kind of like, I don't know. I see them, so it's not a big deal to me. I like you guys going because, in the United States, the places that are here have been so overdone. Like they have places in Pennsylvania where they have the insane asylums and the big boats, the ships, the old ships, what is it, not the Titanic, obviously, the Mary, the big ship. I can't remember right now, my brain, it's too early in the day for me. But so many people go on those ships, and those ships are amazing, and you can always hear stuff. But I like kind of like where you guys are at, because to me that was had more people on it prior to the US coming into effect. Does that make sense?
It does.
Up in Mackinac City too, Mackinac Island, there's a lot of stuff up there. I was up there back in 2007, I think, and I went into one of the bars, and a storm came in, so we couldn't get back to the mainland, and we had missed the boat. So we were sitting in one of the bar restaurants. I was sitting up at the bar with a friend of mine, and there's this guy sitting down at the end of the bar, and the bartender left, and I kept looking at him, and I thought, wow, he's all dressed in period, like a period piece, and he had the like 1800s, and because Mackinac Island is kind of set in that time period, you kind of go back in time. I thought he was a worker, and we looked over, and he was just gone. And we asked the bartender, who was that into the bar? And they go, what guy? There was nobody here. So, there's all kinds of stuff here in the U.S. and in Michigan, and I kind of love it. But it's fun watching you guys. I like watching you guys. I'm getting too old to do this anymore. Go out in the public areas.
I like your Superman hoodie.
Yeah. Got to keep warm in Michigan. I still got ice out here on the ground, so.
There we go. And Bex is just
it's good to see you. Oh, look at the babies. Oh, and I see the big baby back there too. And I'm sure you're the one that's keeping everything together, right?
I'm just been washing the floor.
Controlling the carnage.
Exactly.
We tried to go live, and we tried to go smooth. We went a bit Pete Tong at the start of it. So it's all good. Let's have a quick look at some of these quick questions that have just come in here. Oh, Simon Buckle. There we are. Can you see that?
Yep.
He used to be do security at a haunted manor house, and loved it there.
Must have a story.
Sorry?
Must have a story or two to tell.
You must do, Simon. You must, if you want to speak to us live on here, let us know, or tell us your story in the comments so we can find out what the story is. But I bet Simon saw a lot there at Haunted Manor House, but we don't know where it is. But it sounds interesting. Let's have a nosy. Oh, there's a good place I'd like to go to. Edinburgh Vaults. Oh, there we go.
So would I.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to do Edinburgh Vaults and Mary King's Close. I'd love to do there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of history in Scotland and in Edinburgh, and I've seen Edinburgh Vaults featured on different shows before, but it's not yet been featured on Ghost Dimension. So it'll be interesting to head over and investigate. But is it the vaults? Isn't there certain vaults where there's a lot of background noise from the streets above?
Yeah, in certain parts you can, but like Bear was saying about Detroit and the streets being built over the older streets, Edinburgh Vaults is very similar. It's all underground, and it used to be pretty much a self-contained community. It had its shops, living accommodation, cobblers, bars, brothels. It was all that kind of thing, and it was only 20, 30 years ago that they actually discovered the vaults. They didn't realise that there was a whole self-contained living place below the streets of Edinburgh as it's known today. And as soon as they opened the place up, activity was happening straight away. It's challenged a lot of people that have been there to visit. It's quite unnerving. So hopefully we'll get there sometime.
We have a couple places in Detroit that were renovated. They were old firehouses, and one was an old police, a police house. And it's the same thing. Once they started renovating, they actually could hear like talking. When you walk in, you can hear talking from the cops and the firemen that used to be there. It's pretty interesting. There's also some hot spots in Detroit, and I'm using Detroit because it's so historically interesting as well. And there's some places like speakeasies that used to be speakeasies in old buildings, like during Prohibition and stuff. And you can go in there, and there's a lot of stuff seen and heard down there too. But for me, it was the firehouse that I went to. It was pretty amazing at how, you could hear. It was like kind of in a different dimension, like you're there and you're hearing everything go around you that was in historically. Very similar. This is something. I don't know if you guys. Well, Sean, Bex, you guys are at where you're at. You hear a lot of stuff at your place, I'm sure. And we lived, before I got into this home, and it's been about 12 years now, we lived down the road. I was renting a place, and it seemed to be like, Paul, it was kind of like in a vortex or like a ley line was there, because we would see and hear people from the early 1900s, and my kids would see them too when they were there. They walk through the house. Wow. They'd be walking through the house, but for them, the house wasn't really there. It was just land. But we had a couple times, including one time when my daughter was sitting in the living room, and this woman walked in, and she turned and she looked at her like, "Who are you?" Wow. And you could see him walk through the house, like physically walking through the house. You could see through them, but they were solid enough to kind of tell what period they were in. Yeah. And you would always hear talking. And when I went downstate one time and my daughter was there with one of her friends at the house, they were scared to even come out of the bedroom because they thought people were in the house having a party. So it's really weird. I think ley lines have a lot to do with it. Paul, when you guys went up and did with the witches, the Pendle witches, when your cars were all going, your car went crazy and all that stuff and wouldn't start. And you guys were out in the middle of nowhere. The energy was did you think maybe it was on a ley line or something?
It could be. Paul will know more about if it was. But I must say, every time Paul tries to get us to go near witches, something happens. The last time we went near witches, the car broke down, then Paul made us reverse into a big patch of grass. And then on top of that, the last time we were out filming with Ghost Dimension, remember? And Paul reversed us into a Stockport. He reversed us into a gate. You know, so I think maybe it's not just that. Maybe Paul's just like bad luck, and maybe.
Oh, I would
Now
not.
we put the now should we put the record straight?
Yeah,
You reversed it into that gate at Bolton, and I said, "Let me get out the car and make sure you're clear." You went, "No, no, it's okay."
yeah, There's
Maybe
no-
the girls should
I
drive.
don't know.
maybe you should drive, Paul.
Maybe the girls should drive, Jane or Bex, and you guys can like just sit in the back. Laurel and Hardy,
I
you
think
two.
they were.
Abbott and Costello, you know. What do you think, Bex?
It's a good idea. That is a really good idea. There's a comment I'm going
I
to
think
put.
the girls are the qualified drivers at driving them posse.
Aye. I tell you what, they were crazy before though. So it's pronounced Vari, did you say, Paul?
Laurie.
Mar.
I think it's Vari.
Oh, Barry.
Have you guys done
Vari.
Vari?
Barry.
Okay. Have you guys done house calls before? I don't know why, but they always seem fascinating to me. This is Paul, one of Paul's ones. The people that live in the houses with all sorts of interesting activity. You do house calls, don't you, Paul?
Yes, I've done quite a few. I think people's homes can be more, I don't know if the word's haunted, more active than a castle. I think with places that have got historic hauntings, it's a conditions environment, so the conditions have to be right, the timing, time of year, the weather perhaps, I don't know, but people that live through a haunting on a day-to-day basis, I find extremely fascinating. I've done so many house visits. I got a call to do a home in Withenshaw many years ago, and the girl that was living there, she'd been there for about 4 months, and more or less from day one, something was there letting her know that it wasn't happy with her. It hated a boyfriend to the point where he stopped going round. And she couldn't sleep well at night. She was constantly sort of being prodded and cold blasts in her face. So went round with the aid of somebody I was associated with, and through process of elimination and doing some calling out, what have you, we found out that the guy that was haunting the house was the guy that lived in it and died there, but he didn't know he died. It's very possible for some spirits not to realise that they've passed. And this guy was kind of adamant that it was his house, his property, his home, wasn't going to be moved on. Didn't sort of realise at first that he had died, and it took some persuasion, but eventually managed to move him on. We got the guy's name, which was quite good. The girl that owned the house, Joanne, she actually got back to me a few weeks later, and she'd been to the library, got through the records, births, deaths, marriages, and all that, and found an obituary for the guy that lived in a house, and it was this guy. We got his name, found out, when he died, what he died from, and he'd only been dead about 3 years, but we managed to move him on. She reported back that everything was fine, everything was calm. Her boyfriend was coming back round. So yeah, I've done quite a few. I've got one to talk about tomorrow night, which is probably the most terrifying. Two actually, the most terrifying ones. Not from my point of view, but from the people that were going through it. But if you know, it's kind of like war, if you like. If you know your enemy, you've got a better way of dealing with how to deal with it. So find out what it is and who it is you're dealing with. You can handle it a lot better.
Sometimes too, like people buy new homes, and I always tell them to smudge it, like to clear the energy as they're moving in, and they'll have things going on. And I've had cases too where I've gone in where the kids were being scared, and sometimes it's a matter of perspective too. Once you make that contact with who it is and they realize who it is. Like I had the one child that she was scared. She didn't want to go in her room. She didn't want to be staying in the house by herself. And she was like 11 years old. And she wound up, when I went down, it was her grandmother that had passed earlier in the year, and she had been really close with grandma. But because she was so scared, she couldn't tell it was grandma. So I gave them information like, you were saying, Paul, you get names and things that are going on, and it related to them, and they understood it. And once the little girl understood what was going on, and grandma was there to say, I love you, and just kind of keep an eye on things, the whole perspective of the energy was changed and different, and I think what people don't realize is having spirit in the house or ghost or whatever you want to call it isn't always bad when you acknowledge them. They kind of leave you alone. And then the ones like you were saying, if the guy didn't really realize he had passed, our job, well, at least my job, what I think it is to go in and help move them on, or at least give them peace to know that they can live kind of in balance with the people that are in the house.
That's good. That. There's a comment there coming from Natalie Fletcher. My childhood home was haunted by a man. My mum used to see him all the time, and she always got the name Malcolm. He was like part of the family to us. Weird as it sounds, we later found out that the house was built on a graveyard, and it was only supposed to be for temporary for people. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that was scary.
That would have been really weird because we live next to lots of graves and stuff. It doesn't automatically mean that the ghosts are going to come over and speak to you or interact with you. But if it depends, if the spirits are like people, which we should believe, then maybe that person, it was his home as well as maybe being built on a graveyard, and he was coming back in visitation, perhaps, or maybe it was a distant family member.
Sometimes they're attracted to people when, like, and I know you two or you three, because of the work you do, they realize that you can see, hear, or sense them. And sometimes that's what they want. They want that acknowledgement, whether it's maybe a story that's told about them or some history that's cleared up with them. But it's all about, they can be anywhere at the, like they can be, it's not the same as physical form. So sometimes they just want to be heard or recognized, if that makes sense.
It does indeed, yeah. Let's put another one on there. Go on, Paul. Paul. There you go.
Just going to say, I can tell you a funny story about a haunting. I used to do public meetings, and I had this one evening at the Bait Hall in Macclesfield, of all places. Great turnout. And when I'd finished, this couple came up and said, can we have a chat with you? Got something to tell you? So absolutely. So we recently moved into a house about 6 months or so, and we've got a ghost in our house. And I said, all right. I said, has it caused you any problems? I said, on the contrary, said, we'll go out to work and, the house will be in a mess. And when we come back, it's tidy. And I thought, yeah, all right, you're pulling my leg now. Or they could see us looking at it. And they said, no, honestly, dead serious. We'll leave pots in the sink. We'll leave, muck on the floor, whatever. And the neighbours have actually heard the Hoover going, somebody whistling, knowing that they've gone out to work, and they've come back. The pots have been washed, hoovering, even changed the bedding. Now I am looking at them. I'm going, okay. Special bus outside for you, perhaps. I said, would you like me to come round and investigate? They went, no, we don't, because we don't want him to go.
Oh, God.
I was going to say, give him my phone number. I need some help here at the house.
So do I with 3 kids.
I mean, what a great service that'd be, Don't need paying. How do you cash a ghost check? But I was, I honestly, but I mean, they were so sincere and very adamant that they didn't want me to go round. Could be because, I might have found it was a hoax. But then again, maybe they just didn't want to get rid of the living cleaner.
Yeah.
But, yeah, quite an amazing story.
There's a comment here I'm just going to put up. I know it's also Wythenshawe is in Manchester, and it's a scary place to live. Some people say that because of maybe violence and stuff. But we've lost Paul. We've lost him, I think. It's also a very haunted place, and there's lots of spooky and haunted areas in there. And I know that we've filmed in a few. You back? We got you back, Paul. Paul, we can hear you. You're live.
Can't hear you.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
There you go. There you go.
We were saying Wythenshawe is a very haunted place, and we shot some stuff.
Can't hear anybody.
Yeah. Can you hear us now, Paul? Yeah.
Hello.
No, we can hear you. Yeah.
Fully
Can't
can't.
hear anyone.
He
If you can hear
he's
me,
sounding
I
like
can't
it
hear anything.
now. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, had a phone call, so me
Ah,
off.
tell you
I
those
know.
are terrible.
All the time for people to ring.
You can hear us now, though, yeah.
I can't hear you, mate. Shall I leave and come back?
He's answering the question.
Okay,
Can you
let's
hear
do
me?
that.
Can't
No.
even read your lips.
We've
Disagree.
been sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Audio.
place to live.
Mic on.
Are we good?
I don't know what else to do.
You do something
I'll
else.
leave.
Yeah, and
No,
then
don't leave,
leave
Paul.
and come straight back.
Okay,
If
yeah.
you can hear me, wave. You can hear me. Just
Leave,
me then.
Leave, go
and
away,
come back.
and then come back. Private lesson.
I'll drop what I'll do. I'll just drop Paul another invitation now, and then we'll try and get him back on. I think his
He got the phone call, so it messed up.
I think it
didn't
messed up with the phone call. But as I was saying before, Wythenshawe is really. I thought I was messaging Paul then. A really weird place for locations, and there's some fantastic locations there as well that you can investigate, as well as it being a scary place to live. Maybe
Have you guys ever gone anywhere where you don't want to go back again because it really kind of ticked you and just kind of gave you that EBGBs? Bex, I can tell by Bex's face she's thinking real hard about this one.
Yeah, well, I am thinking because I've come out of a location and I have actually said to everybody, I don't really want to go back there ever again. I wouldn't go back there if you paid me. I can't remember where though.
It
We've
wasn't.
done so many locations that
But it has happened, yes.
you just remember the feeling. I don't want to go back there. I think when we went to Gran Canaria, I think the House of the Devil was one of them. Hey, Paul's back. Can you hear us?
It's the bloody market researchers.
They're all supposed to be hiding
Have
in
you been
sheltering. They should call everybody.
Can you hear us?
They said, have you been missold PPE?
PP, personal protective equipment. No, Bear was just asking that if there was any places that we wouldn't want to go back to, and there has been.
There has been, hasn't there?
Where
We've
was
all
that?
come
I'm
out
not
and
going back.
said.
I mean, I wouldn't go back to Pendle Hill, not to the Witches.
I thought that was great. Nothing bad happened to you there at Pendle Hill. That was an awesome investigation that you guys did.
Dawn doesn't
Really?
do witches.
We had to sleep in the car near
Dawn
enough.
doesn't do.
Yeah, but that house you went to in Gran Canaries, Bex, when I started watching that, I was like, oh no, because the feeling that came over me was really negative, but it was really a dark negative, like a lot of violence I felt was there.
Yeah, exactly. I felt the same when we were there, and I said to everybody when we were filming that we were in a foreign country. We didn't know where to go. We didn't know where to run. The car was ages away, so we had to walk a long time to get to safety, sort of thing. And it was not a nice feeling, especially when we set the trigger object up. And then we were standing away from it. We heard the trigger object and the footsteps. And it just makes your hackles go up and you think, yeah, I don't want to go back there.
I just felt there was a lot of violence on that ground. Like there was like I kept seeing a lot of like blood and just violence, like very, very violent. And then as I was feeling it, all of a sudden you were like, whoa, and I'm like, yep, that's not a good place to be. And I actually think I sent you guys a message and said, don't ever go back there unless you have like a gallon for everybody of holy water, because that place is not a good place.
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling.
And I know, Paul, things that we've discussed before on here. I think we were talking about, or maybe it was when we did the interview before, about how sometimes people need protection and then some people don't believe in it because it's all in your mind. I mean, what do you say to those people, Paul? Because you've been doing this a long time.
I've got to say, it's coming through really crackly here, so I'm trying to piece together what people are saying. Protection's all in the mind. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that, but a lot of people do. What's your thoughts on that?
I only heard what's your thoughts. Sorry.
Go back, go off again, Paul, and come back.
Can you hear us now, though?
It just keeps cracking up, so it's I don't know whether there's a lag. I'm just not meant to be here.
It's the spirits.
It's a spirit conspiracy.
Go off, Paul. Okay. Can you hear us?
What about you, Sean? What do you think? I mean, Paul's been doing this for a long.
Oh no, Bear's gone.
Lost Bear.
Thought process.
Not just me.
I lost Bear then for a second. What was the question, Bear? I lost you then.
Well, you've had your skeptics on your show too. That people that have more scientific minds.
Oh yes, yeah.
They think it's all in your head. I mean, what's your thought process? Do you feel that you need protection in some of these places?
I sometimes. So some things can be in people's heads.
It looks like a naughty dog.
Yeah.
A bobblehead, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, some people, it is in their heads, some people, and it would be wrong to say it's not in their heads, because some people have been out there and have witnessed it, and have been in paranormal groups where you've been with lots of people, and if they look at a K2 meter long enough on the floor in the dark, they think it's moving. So it is in their heads. But until you experience something yourself, that when you experience it, that that's real, then that's when it's not in your head. Because the people, I always say, like, people will say, I've been touched, and they'll just say feel a little movement on them. You haven't been touched unless you feel that you've been touched. Yeah, when something touches you, it's like somebody touches you. It's not a bit of movement of your cloth, maybe I've just folded out of your clothes. When somebody's touched you, and it's like a real person's touched you, and things like that. So some of it can be in people's heads, and for the people that are scientifically saying it is in your heads, if they experience it, and they want to experience it first, you've got to want to experience it. But then if you want to experience it too much, you will have it in your head. So you need to experience it to a level where you are open to it, to then when something does happen, you'll know the difference between if it's real or if it's not real.
But what do you do to protect yourself?
Or
do you feel that you don't have to protect yourself?
I've got a hand wash.
Yeah.
A mask.
Well, have we anymore?
Yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. 6 feet, guys.
Just going to put my finger in eye.
No.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. That I do is based on an internal martial art, which I've been doing since I was 9. So my protection's kind of got to that point with practice that it kicks in automatically. The difference between thought and reaction is a split second, and a split second can be too long. So as soon as I'm sort of in that mindset and my feelings are kicking in, the protection's on. Sometimes you don't need it as ramped up in some places as others. The place that we did in Gran Canaria, very, very, very negative place. Protection was ramped right up because I wasn't taking any chances. There was definitely something not very welcoming there. So, you know, that had to be dealt with as a, you know, very strong protection. And just going back to about being in people's minds, I love skeptics, always love skeptics, because it's not our job to convince anybody that the paranormal's real. All you need to do is have an open mind, really, go into somewhere and see what happens. And I've seen so many skeptics. I've seen 6'5" rugby players run out of a place because something's happened and they can't handle it. I've seen people trying to climb up walls when something's happening that previously they would have just said didn't exist. As soon as they're face to face with it, or, you know, so to speak, something's happening to them, it's a completely different change. I had one guy that came to an event that only came because his wife was going. He wasn't interested. Another big fella, don't believe in it. They came with us. They spent. They did one vigil, and he came up and he said, "We're leaving." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You're not having a good time." He said, "I can't explain what's just happened to me." He said, "I've had enough. I'm going." His wife wanted to stay, but something had clearly happened to him that baffled logic in his head, and that was enough for him. So, you know, I don't think he left so skeptical after that.
There's a comment coming there about the ancient ramen, and there's been how about the ancient ramen? There's been numerous times very chilly place. I'm reading that wrong, but the ancient ramen is not a place we've been to. I've heard a lot of stories about it. I've seen it and watched the videos, but sometimes these places can be overdone, can't they?
Yeah, I've never been. I'll be honest. I know a few people that have. I don't. I mean, it's got the history. It's definitely got the history behind it, but I think it's been overhyped. I think it's been overdone. It's well overpriced. If you want to go and spend some time there, the guy that originally owned it, John, he's now passed on. I think it's his daughter that runs the place now. So she's going at it more of a business, whereas John just enjoyed having people, you know, come round, charge them very minimum entry fee. But it's one of those, like 39 Bay Street. It's got a lot of props in there, which will already set you off subliminally. You'll already have that in your mind that it looks creepy. There are some places that you can go to and you think, if it isn't haunted, it should be, because it looks like the right kind of place for it.
Yeah.
The ancient ramen certainly looks good enough to be haunted, and I think it probably is, but not as much as it's been sold on. And like I say, I think it's probably been done to death, pardon the pun.
Where's a place, Paul, that you would want to go that you haven't gone yet that you'd want to investigate?
Well, we said Alcatraz yesterday, which is
that's on my list.
Over here, I'd love to do Edinburgh Vaults. I would love to do Chillingham Castle. I'd love to do Dover Castle. Dover Castle has got a maze of underground tunnels because it was used during the Second World War for a warning base and what have you. So it's got loads of tunnels. There's just a list. I mean, if we could get on the road and do this 7 days a week, I'm pretty sure. Sean and Bex would have to sell the children.
What about you guys, Bex? What do you think? What's a place that you would want besides Alcatraz, which I know is top on your list?
I think anywhere in America, to be honest. I'd love to come to America and do a whole series of Ghost Dimension out there,
like coast to coast type thing.
There's some amazing places that just so many good stories are coming from, and we just can't get out there at the minute. So I would love to do that.
Yeah,
somewhere in America, different locations. I think it would be fantastic.
We have people
can't even go down road at the moment, can we?
Well, exactly, yeah.
We had people offer us locations over there as well, didn't
Yeah.
we? So we had like a roadmap ready, but we'll have to tail that back in until we can fly.
There's a couple places in the States that are on my list that I really want to go to, and one is Skinwalker Ranch. And that's because of my native roots.
Yeah.
The curiosity that I have for it, and every time I think of it, the hair goes up on the back of my neck when I think of it. So it's somewhere I'd want to go. And I'd also like to go out west. I think it's in Oregon. It might be Washington State, but I think it's in Oregon, where the Chinese tunnels are that were mining tunnels, but because they didn't want, the white people didn't want to allow the Chinese on like the main streets and in town, they put them underground in the tunnels, and they worked the mines, the silver mines there. And that's another place that I'd really like to go. That really super creeps me out. But yeah, just some cool places to go for sure.
And just
Waverly Hills.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, again, but is it done to death? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you want to experience it, Waverly Hills is like one of those places that, yeah, maybe everybody's gone, but it's kind of like if you go there, you know you're going to experience something. So I think it is one of those things like you want to go and see if you can get what they got or more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a huge, so much to go at there. You know,
See, Bex, you and Jane would have to do vigils too, because you know it's so big. They'd have enough space to put you all in a separate room, so you guys would all be by yourselves.
Where's Leap Castle? Yasmin has said Leap Castle. Where's Leap? I've heard Isla.
Yeah, Let Castle in Ireland.
The island.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. That's another one. Got a lot of stuff going. It's not an overdone location. They're very choosy as to who goes in to investigate. But yeah, Let Castle, very, very haunted, very active.
And we could present it in Irish and go, welcome to Ghost Dimensions.
Good morning,
Good morning.
And then Paul would go behind the camera. Paul would go,
Shine a light.
no, he'd go. I would be
Can I
standing
make
there.
a suggestion?
Yeah. You see the finger going up first before Paul even says that. He goes, so you're reading your lost lines, and you can see Paul's finger behind the camera going. Oh. And then as soon as it cuts, you're like, what, Paul? Can I make a suggestion?
No, Paul, we're from Swelling, but let me tell you.
You don't even sound Irish.
Oh well. Let's have a quick nose at the comments there, and we'll wrap it up in a second then. Oh, an airfield. We did speak aerodrome, didn't we? That was good. And that's one of the things I would like to check out. Would be a train, haunted train, or a ship.
We have trains here that ran from Mackinac Island to Detroit, and they've got several of them set up different places in the state because the Mackinac Railroad shut down. They still use the tracks, but it's not the same rail company. And I'd love to get into some of those cars because they have like 4 or 5 of them at each place. Yeah. And they've restored them, and there's got to be stuff going on them. Trains are cool. Trains are really cool.
All right. They are good. Right, guys, we're going to wrap this up for today. And then tonight at 8:30, live on Facebook and YouTube, we have our broadcast of Chasing a Ghost, which is a very, very exciting episode, and some really good activity happens as well. So we can't wait to show you what happens later. But it's been great. It's been a fantastic live, and obviously daily there's more of these to come. So thank you everybody that's been watching, and we'll speak to you all again very, very soon.
Bye. Enjoy tonight.
Have a good day, kids. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.